Hi, my name is Andrea Moro. I am an economist at Vanderbilt University and I blog at noisefromamerica.org. I prepared this presentation for the Salamanca Social Science Festival. I'm going to ask the following question. Can we blog economics? And what should we blog about? And how do we do that? A number of people last year on the blogosphere discussed this question, after Karthik Atreya said no, we should not blog economics. He posted a PDF document titled Economics is Hard, Don't Let Bloggers Tell You Otherwise. He complained that a lot of people are trying to understand the crisis and the recession and blog about it, even if they're not experts. And it takes years to learn the economic methods, so non-experts cannot pretend that they can understand it and blog about it. Economics should be more like medicine, engineering, and seismology. Nobody tells doctors about how to run their procedures or engineers how to build bridges. And seismology was not condemned for the failure of predicting Japan's earthquake. Therefore, no, we should not blog economics. The blogosphere was outraged, and many bloggers reclaimed the right to blog economics. Basically a bunch of autodidacts, or old new Keynesians who think macro is easy. Tyler Cowen from Marginal Evolution had a different perspective. He wrote that economics is really hard, but non-PhD bloggers are sometimes better equipped at judging public policy because they're better capable of evaluating broad bodies of knowledge. I think he was being nice. So can we blog economics? I think yes. And not because we want to explain the details of dynamic macro to our readers. It may take a PhD to know that. But with blogs, we can teach something valuable to non-experts. We can teach to think like an economist. This is Adam Smith, by the way. So how would he think? How do economists like to think about different issues? First element is that economists like to use models. Models are abstract representation of the real world. Models nowadays are mostly mathematical and algebraic, but they don't need to be that. George O'Keeffe, the painter who painted this beautiful picture, once said, "Nothing is less real than realism. It is only by selection, by elimination, by emphasis that we can get at the real meaning of things." That's how economists think. Models are like maps. Maps are different. There are large-scale maps that are useful to understand countries' sizes. There are small-scale maps that are useful to go from A to B. Maps have different layers. You can add traffic layers to understand traffic patterns. You can also do map navigation if you have a navigator. Navigators can take you to the wrong place because the real world evolves faster than the maps do. So sometimes we have wrong models and we need to be careful about them. An example of wrong model is the model that our own Sandro Brusco from Noise from America called the superfixed model. He wrote about the superfixed model because he saw it everywhere in the political commentary. The superfixed model is a model where everything is fixed. Resources are fixed, desires are fixed, technology is fixed. In this model, there's no role for prices. Prices can only reallocate resources. So, for example, whenever you hear people complaining about the jobs lost to China, they are thinking in terms of the superfixed model. They don't think that these jobs free up resources here to do something better than t-shirts. And of course, this is not to say that there are no costs for somebody from jobs lost to China. Some people are losing their jobs. However, there are also benefits. Some resources are going to be freed up to make better jobs than making t-shirts. So economists like to use models. What else do economists do? Economists think of individuals as self-interested. This statement doesn't have much content in my opinion. Even Mother Teresa was self-interested. She cared about the others and that affected her choices. So being self-interested does not mean that people are selfish or incapable of caring for others or the common good. Governments, for economists, are made of individuals, so it's not good to think of politicians as people who pursue the common good. It's useful to think of politicians as being self-interested. And the question for us is, how do we provide incentives so that they do care for the common good? All these self-interested choices result in equilibrium phenomena. So when I make a choice, I affect somebody else's choice, and their choice will affect my choice. That is an equilibrium. So whenever we think about economic phenomena, we need to be careful about these feedback effects. Economics is not in the business of making predictions. Economics is not meteorology. If I could predict that there would be a crisis next week, then I, or the market, can make it happen tomorrow. The one prediction we can make is that we cannot make predictions. So we're not meteorology, and yet we can say something useful about the economic environment and how the economy works. Economists use data-driven arguments, and they try to be careful with data. Being careful with data means several things. A big one is to understand that correlation is not causation. Whenever we see a traffic jam on the streets, we also see a traffic officer trying to direct traffic. That does not mean that traffic officers cause traffic. It means the opposite. When there's traffic, we need a traffic officer. So correlation is not causation. The data that we observe is the result of choices, and that generates selection bias. I may observe that my friend, who's a doctor, makes twice as much money as I do. That does not mean that if I hadn't gone to medical school, I'd be earning twice my salary, because I'm not good at medicine, I'm good at economics. And therefore, my observation that the doctors' salaries are higher than mine does not mean that I could earn that salary if I went to medical school. And many, many other elements of being careful with data. The first one can be easily understood by a statistician. It means the following. It means that even though we see many terroristic acts being committed by Arabs lately, that does not mean that random Arab on the street is likely to be a terrorist. That is a different thing. Stocks are not flows, derivatives are not level. Let me explain this. In Italian newspapers, every 2 or 3 months, when inflation goes down, you hear a big title that says prices went down. Well, when inflation goes down, prices still go up. Inflation going down means only that their going up is lower than before. And also, you need to be careful about what is data. A set of anecdotes is not data. Data is information collected in a very special way. And so we need to be careful about that. Economists are careful with data, and data is useful to keep politicians accountable, among many other things. Economists think a lot about incentives. Let me give you an example here taken from a recent post on Noise from America. When Italian ministers go abroad on official trips, it is normal for them to take journalists on the government airplane. Recently, the Italian Foreign Affairs Minister went on a trip to Libya and gave a press conference. During the press conference, one of the Italian journalists asked an embarrassing question to the minister. Shortly afterwards, the minister told that journalist that the plane was full and he could not get a ride back home on the government plane. Understandably, the journalist was very upset. How dares the minister give preferential treatment to the journalists who asked the nice questions? We sympathize with the journalist. However, as economists, how do we think about this situation? We think about incentives. And what kind of incentives do these free rides provide? We would tell the journalist, if you really want to be independent and ask the questions you want, why don't you pay for your own ride? And forget about the free rides provided by the government. Pay for your own ride and you will be independent. So these are just some examples of the elements that make up the way we think as economists. And I think what we do at Noise from America, we try to explain how we view current events as economists, the way we think of them as economists. And how do we do that? And we have a different model from most blogs. We have long, boring posts, full of figures, full of tables and data. And the good thing about these boring posts is that they attract smart readers. And so we have a different community from most blogs. We have a social norm for using real names. We have threaded comments that encourage helpful discussions. And discourage trolling. And so we learn a lot from our readers. So in short, can we blog economics? I think we can. We don't want to discuss the intricacies of dynamic modern macro, but we can teach to think like an economist. And I think there are many ways to do that. And the way we do it at Noise from America works for us. Thank you.